My dad got hard after helping me shower. I'm 23. Last year I got COVID, and it hit me pretty hard. My dad, who's 43, was the only one who was available to help care for me. He owns a company, so he gets to set his own schedule. He stayed home while I was alone to care for me, and my sister took over whenever she would get home. I was sick for about a week, and in that week he fed and cared for me. The first 3 days were horrible, and he showered me 2 of those days. I kept my undies on, and all he really did was lather me up with a washcloth, rinse me down, and pat me dry. The first time went normal. I think so anyways. I was so out of it I could barely remember it. The second time, though, I noticed he was hard. He didn't cause the hugest tent in the world, but he was, and it grossed me out. The next day, I asked if he could just wait outside and check on me. I just stood in the water for a bit since I didn't have the energy to scrub down. Anyways, that's the topic I'm talking about today. I was pretty grossed out by it, and afterwards it made me recall how desperate he was to always take my dirty clothes along with everything else I dirtied. I thought it was sweet, but after that incident, it grossed me out to think of what he might have done with them. And after I got better, I recalled everything he ever did for me and wondered whether it was out of kindness or some messed up reason. Needless to say, I was pretty uncomfortable with him after that. I recalled how it was his idea that I shower and how he made me feel so comfortable. It was his idea to have me not be completely unclothed. I would only take them off after we finished. Afterwards, I'd head into my room with a towel and have picked out clothes for me on the bed. Now, though, it all left a sour thought in my head about him. I started paying attention more to how he acted around me, and I caught him staring at me dozens of times. I'm still grossed out by it, and our relationship has definitely took a turn. He's even pointed it out. I don't know if he's really oblivious as to why I changed or what's going on. I haven't seen him the same since it happened and have been having negative thoughts towards him. I can feel myself loving him less every time I catch him staring at me or remembering something he's done and wondering what intentions he really had. I found it gross up until last week when my boyfriend and I started talking about weird turn-ons. He told me a couple of things he thinks are on the naughty side of the spectrum, and one of them was father-daughter. I tried to casually pick his brain about it, but he caught on that it had piqued my interest. He accused me of liking it as well, but I told him I didn't, because I really believed I didn't. After we finished talking, surprise, surprise, his favorite type of prawn was father-daughter stuff. He told he had never done anything with family but loved to read about it and watch videos, all that fun stuff. Despite not liking it at the time, I was all for what he had recommended we do. We played around with me calling him daddy and talking dirty to each other, but that was the extent of it, until I told him what had happened the year prior with my dad. We were on the topic of COVID and how it was when we first got it. He told me about how it was for him and who took care of him, and I told him about how it was for me and who took care of me. That must have been fun, he joked. I noticed he kept throwing in little comments like, "Ooh, that's interesting." Did he now? I'm sure he did. All were said in a type of way that made me know he was enjoying it. I was enjoying how much he was loving it, and I eventually fed him a little more details, some if, which I never thought of telling anyone, let alone my boyfriend. We were in bed when we were talking about it, and I slowly creeped up to him and asked, "Do you like hearing about how my daddy showered me?" He responded with an approval grunt as I reached down and felt how hard he already was. He had to lather me up with a thin little cloth, probably as thin as this, I said to him as my hand slowly jerked him through his briefs. "And do you want to know a secret?" I whispered in his ear. I saw how hard he got when he did it. I had little time to see his reaction as he quickly let out a groan and grabbed my head to push it down towards him. I sucked his D for maybe about a minute, and he came, "He's never done it that quick since we've been together." When we regrouped, he asked if I was being serious, and I told him I was. I haven't gotten over the feeling of disgust from my dad, but talking about it turns me on so much, and thinking about it does the same. Something I hated so much is now something I'm starting to really love.